guys, you should really check out the Becoming a Man podcast.
Oh yeah, my boyfriend told me about it.
Some really deep conversations taking place.
Hey guys, it's real, hey?
You know,
It's also very inclusive too.
Bro, where is everyone?
Oh, I was just trying out this really cool multilingual voice generator called Fish Audio. It's realistic voice cloning that video podcasters like me and content creators like yourself can benefit from. And guess what? They have a free trial and it's super affordable. If you're a podcaster, voiceover artist, or content creator looking for hyper-realistic AI-generated voices, you need to check out Fish Audio. To start your free trial, go to fish.audio and see why they are the best AI voice tool.
My mother was not that educated. Strange enough, she was a cleaner at Vets.
Yeah.
Now talk about a powerful woman, and she raised me up to be a professor
Come on.
at Vets.
Wow. Already, as an infant, losing your father, was there no male figure, no uncle, maybe that kind of, but took you in to be like, this would be my son?
No.
Namani.
Yeah,
Welcome. Thank you so much for being on this episode. I say Namani because that's basically how we refer to you as the family. But for those tuning in, I am with Professor Masego. My father, if you want to be legal about it, it's my father-in-law. And so before we jump into it, just for those who are listening in or watching, who is Professor Masego?
who is he?
Yeah.
Okay, Professor Masego, as you said, is Namane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that name. It's actually a Masego clan name,
Yeah.
mainly because I was the last born. Four in the family, and I was the last born and a boy. So that's why I was given that clan name, Namane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is awesome. So today the conversation that I just want to unpack with you, in the time that we have, is basically we want to look at being what you never had. And this basically stems from obviously just looking at the landscape of our country, our community, and even us as in particular Black people, that we face a lot of struggles, particularly with as men. Whether it is not having a father, not growing up with a father, or maybe you have a father but it's not present, or whatever the case may be. There may be various things that play into that. But then regardless of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, that we grow up in, the homes we grow up in, there's expectations to live up to a certain standard as society and from society. And so that can pose a lot of challenges. And also if you're lacking in a certain space, maybe the growing up in a different environment that might, affect how you grow up. And so I just want to speak around that. And so the first question that I want to throw at you is basically just talking around the personal background and just experience. Maybe if you can just share, what was it like in your circumstances, like your upbringing, the role models that you had, or the lack of it? What did the upbringing look like for you?
Yeah, like I've said earlier, that I was last born in a family of four, 3 girls and a boy. My father passed away when I was at the age of 10 months, so I don't even know him.
Sure.
So it brings up the issue of a male role model.
Yeah.
So as soon as my eyes were opened, the main person was in my life. Was my mother, So what made life even more difficult is that when my father passed away, his property was taken over by the family.
Sure.
And they kicked my mother out with 4 kids. You can imagine I was the youngest. So for as long as I can remember, I've been homeless.
Yeah.
So life was very difficult because I needed to survive in that environment. I don't remember staying in one home for more than 2 years.
Sure.
I would move from home to home, just to survive. And my mother was not that educated. Strange enough, she was a cleaner at Vets.
Yeah. Wow.
Now talk about a powerful woman.
Wow.
And she raised me up to be a professor
Come on.
at Vets.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, with the little money that she made sure that we stay in school. A very strict woman. I wouldn't dare cross the line.
Yeah.
So even as I was growing and my peers started smoking and drinking, she told me straight that you dare do that. You don't know what's coming your way. So I feared her, because of her strictness. And I think that helped me a lot to be just on the straight and narrow path. Even though, as I can tell you, the life was very difficult because I had to survive in the streets. Difficult as it was as a teenager, I normally see these people who, with big plastic bags on the roads in the morning, who carry scraps.
Ish.
That was my life. I needed to go and find scraps and go and sell in town and make some money so that I'll have something to eat at school. Yeah. If I don't get any money, it would be very tough for me. I would have to starve for the whole day. But one thing I knew is that I needed to stay at school, no matter how hard it was. Though I was starving on some of the days, but I knew that it's my only way out. Yeah, if I stay in school. So that was very helpful, and having a strict mother like mine. But also for her to take care of 4 kids for such a long time. I don't remember how old she was when she really struggled herself with health, but I know I was 14 when she got seriously ill and she had to be taken by her uncles to stay with them somewhere around Pinoni. Now I was on my own because it was everybody for himself. My sisters, fortunately, by that time, they had matriculated, so they took up nursing. Which was a very good thing because it gave them a home. You stay at nurse's home. Now it meant I needed to find my own accommodation and stay in school. So I stayed with friends. I stayed with relatives for some time, and they would kick me out, and then I would have to find another place.
Sure.
And what about my fees? What about books? I found a bursary in Soweto, area called Mzimhlope. It was called Rand Bursary Fund because I was doing so well at school. They actually financed me. Can you imagine at high school, I was already on a bursary.
Wow.
Yeah, and in a government school where school fees was about 2 rands at that time. But getting that 2 rands, I needed a bursary.
Sure.
Yeah. So they bought me books, and I managed to go through high school in that way.
So with all of that, like pretty much your entire childhood, like yes, understanding, like unfortunately, already as an infant losing your father, was there no male figure, no uncle, maybe that kind of but took you in to be like, this would be my son, or grandfather, or was there maybe a teacher at school? Was there just no presence of a male figure in your life that maybe you looked up to, or someone that really cared for you as their own child?
No.
Yeah.
I tried to think.
Yeah.
No.
Oh man.
No one wanted that burden.
Yeah.
you know. And also being poor, you are sort of like a reject. You know, people don't want to associate with you. The uncles and all of that, they started showing up when they saw me going to varsity. There was a sudden interest in me, mshana, you know. People who didn't even care that I existed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my father had brothers, sisters. It's a very big family, but I had to struggle and go through life on my own once my father passed away.
Sure.
But the amazing thing is that that's actually what drew me to God.
Yeah.
You know, not having a role model or someone to rely on, because the only person who was there for me was my mother when she could still manage to work. But once she was out of the picture, from 14 years, I was just on my own. You know, but that helped me a lot in terms of seeking God. You know,
Because so the reason I'm asking this question, did it affect did it affect your relationship with God? The reason I'm asking this is many times we'll see in the church that because an individual struggled with their earthly father in terms of how they related with their earthly father, they struggle to then view God as their father because the definition and the term father is probably very negative or it's filled with pain when they think of father, because maybe I don't have an earthly father, or they abandoned me, or they were abusive. So you say the term father to God, and people struggle to relate to God as their father. They're more comfortable relating to him as God, as their Lord, but not as their father. Did that ever be the case with you?
the opposite was true.
Yeah.
In the sense that not having an earthly father, I felt strongly the presence of a heavenly father, such that even in my early stages in life, I used to pray a lot. You know, even before I understood anything about salvation, because my mom used to tell me Bible stories. So I definitely knew that I have a father in heaven.
Yeah.
You know, so with time that actually grew. I remember even one time praying that, Lord, I thank you that even though I've never had an earthly father, but you've been there for me. You know, so even when I look back over my life, the things I went through, situations I survived, it could have only been God.
Yeah.
Because people who grew up in situations like mine, they actually do not make it. None of my friends actually made it, the ones who were within the street.
And speaking on making it, like maybe, like you mentioned, being homeless basically, and it's, I can only think outside of you, I know one other individual who was homeless and on the streets, and they had the resilience and the will that I want to change my life. I want to get out of this situation. And they did. They did find a job. They ended up renting a space as well. And, you know, like might not have been, I now own my own house or anything, but they actually, you know, are responsible, a responsible citizen, you could even consider. How was that for you, being homeless, facing the realities and the challenges of poverty and being homeless? And at what point, like in your childhood, like I can already gathering from what you're saying, you had to grow up at a very young age. One could even say you probably didn't even enjoy your childhood. At what point did it maybe click for you to like, I need to grow up. I need to maybe be an adult. I need to start maybe figuring out, making a plan, hustling, whatever the case is. At what point maybe was that for you?
Yeah, well, for me, the biggest problem was a roof over my head.
Yeah.
What actually made me more resilient was one time where I didn't know where to sleep, where I was going to sleep. And I had a plastic full of my school clothes and everything. So I go to one of my father's relatives, my father's elder brother or elder cousin, and I knock, you know. He gets excited. Joseph, that's how he called me. I understand that was my grandfather's name. And he said I look like him. He was very excited to see me and he welcomed me to his house. And then I sleep over, wake up the next day, take my plastic clothes, I iron, I go to school. I come back from school. And then he calls me, ngathi uyahlala la wena mfana. It seems as if sozohlala la. Unfortunately, I don't have accommodation for you. I see your situation, but I can't accommodate you now. The house is small, there's no place for you. I just can't take care of you. And that time I had my bazaar. All I needed was just a place to sleep.
Just a roof.
Yeah. I didn't know where to go. So I just went and sat outside until it was dark. And then my cousin opened for me. I went in. He used to sleep very early. After sleeping, I went in and slept. He wakes up in the morning and he sees me very angry. I told you when I'm fine, you can't stay here. Ignored him, went to school and went back. So I said, I'm going to survive this. He'll have to kill me if he wants me out of this house. So I stayed in his house by force. And for years, So that gave me the resilience that there are certain things in life that will not be handed over to you.
Yeah.
You have to take them by force. I suffered because he didn't appreciate my being there. The way he treated me, it was terrible. But I said, I'm going nowhere. And fortunately, while I was there, I got a part-time job in one of those shops there. And I was earning R1 a day, I remember, and that would be my lunch money.
Sure.
So my life sort of improved, So I would be very happy at school. But immediately I hear the alarm. It was 4:00 that it's time to go home. When kids got excited, I got sad. That where am I going?
Yeah. Just to put it maybe to perspective, like in my head, I'm realizing you were talking about R2 school fees and now you're earning R1. What is the equivalent in today's economy of maybe a part-time job where you're earning R1? What was that the equivalent to?
I would say maybe R100.
Yeah.
Because it would give you a decent lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that R1.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember I had 3 friends and would contribute and have R3 and would go and collectively buy food.
Sure.
And I was fortunate that they understood my situation. So in some instances when I didn't have money, they just make sure that at least I get something to eat. And to survive at school, because of my situation, I became the class clown. The funny guy in the class who makes jokes.
They usually say the ones who make jokes and the ones who have the scars and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just hiding that.
Yeah.
That it's very hard.
So basically, it's either one has scars. It's either you mask it by being the class clown or the class bully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was not in me to be a bully, so I became the class clown.
Sure.
Such that even when the teacher asks a question and I raise my hand, she would beg me. There was one Zulu teacher who called me Malume. Malume, please, ngicela ungabhedi tu.
You had that reputation.
Yeah, I had that reputation of just making people laugh. So my days at school were quite nice. Even though I knew I had a nickname, they called me, when I wasn't around, they called me Bazari.
Sure.
I'm in high school being in a Bazari. In Soweto, a poor community, poor people can sometimes be very hostile to each other when they see someone who's worse than them. But I was a survivor.
Yeah.
I remember one time I didn't have shoes. You know what? I wore socks and I tied a bandage inside my sock and I was limping as if I'm injured.
Hey, talk about Ruben's plan.
Yeah, making a plan in difficult situations.
Yeah.
So high school was very difficult for me.
Sure.
That's why I was looking forward to university. But people, when you grow up being poor, people sort of put you in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was grade 10, I was expected to go and work.
Is this by the family or you expected by
the person I stayed with, my father's cousin?
Yeah.
I was staying with him at that time. When I got to grade 10, he said, now, finally, it was called JC at that time. Now you are going to work. But I was thinking big, at that time. So when he saw me going back to school, he wasn't very happy with me. So by the time I reached matric, he was extremely unhappy with me.
Yeah.
So
throughout high school, you were staying with him? Force.
Most of the time. There was a year when I stayed with my sister's boyfriend's family. Which was very humiliating.
Sure.
It was not even a husband, a boyfriend.
Yeah.
But I had to survive.
I can't help it. I think this is my Achilles heel. This is my mountain where I struggle to reconcile with family betrayal. I think, and maybe it's an expectation thing on my side where I expect so much because I'm saying you're family. And so when you're going to be betrayed or you're going to be let down or you're going to be outcast by family, for me, it's something I struggle to reconcile with. And I joke about it. I said a lot with my wife as well. And I'm like, bruh, blood means nothing to me. If you're not for me, you're against me by the wayside. How did that, having to see, being thrown out of your father's house after his death, you and your mother and your siblings, to having an uncle who is not really welcoming, and having to maybe even house hop, did that maybe breed any animosity towards your family? How did you navigate that? And did it take a process to even heal from that?
No, by God's grace, I needed to forgive and move on because the incidents, were happening almost daily, one after the other. I was going to be very bitter and rebellious if I didn't, because I remember there was one time where they removed the mattress I used to sleep with in the kitchen. And now I had to sleep on top of chairs. Just to spite me.
Sure.
Not even counting the beatings and all of that. But I just needed to forgive and move on.
Yeah.
Such that I was close to him even up to the point of his departure. Yeah, he was so excited when I went to visit him when I was at varsity.
Yeah.
He loved me dearly then.
Yeah.
But I needed to forget about the past.
Hey.
Because if you hold on to it, believe you me, it destroys you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that was from me. The only thing I had maybe that made me survive, I was vengeful to those who hurt me in the street.
So I won't act my revenge on family, but in the street.
On the elders where I can't do anything, but in the street, you touch me, watch.
I guess you need to have an outlet somehow.
Yeah.
Oh man. So then, okay. So we've done like you get through high school. Now, was it straight after that? Now you went into varsity. Did you get like a bursary? Like,
Oh, I wish it was that simple.
how?
You know, if they are talking about someone who's failed in life over and over again,
Yo.
it's me.
So it wasn't as easy getting into varsity.
No, I pass matric. I go to my bazaar at the Soweto one.
Yeah.
You know, it was very terrible there in high school. No teachers. We had to teach each other, and I was so drawn to science. You know, there was nothing else I could do. I remember they first put me in a commerce class.
Yeah.
Where I was supposed to do accounting and all of that. I couldn't even hear what the teacher was saying. And they said we must buy that book with many lines and all of that.
Oh, yeah,
from the consumer to the retailer at factory price. I still remember it. I had to memorize. But I hated it and it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the system was so loose that you could move from one class to another without anyone noticing.
Sure.
So I just moved from a commerce class to a science class. And now they were talking about mitochondria, biology. I said, wow, this sounds nice. What's this now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got into science. But unfortunately, there were no good teachers. I remember in grade 9, biology, the teacher knew nothing about biology. And she told us straight that Liskawara kitloli kenyetsa the marks at the end of the year. So that's how I passed biology, grade 9. But kenyeditse the marks.
Here you go.
Here you go.
Wow.
Grade 9, yeah. But I used to read a lot, you know, outside, you know, things that were taught. So I was a bit ahead in terms of what was being taught in class. I remember one time the teacher wanted to introduce pi, you know, the symbol pi.
Oh, yes.
In maths.
Yeah.
And he was asking everyone, what is pi? I was not even popular in class then.
Yeah.
And people were raising hands and my hand was up. And they were saying strange things, you know. I was right there at the back. Finally, the teacher got to me. And I said, 22/7. Clap hands for this boy. It was a concept she still wanted to introduce, but I already knew about it. So even in mathematics and physics, metric, I knew more than my teacher.
Yeah.
Would argue for almost the whole period with the teacher.
Yeah.
And other students would just be sitting and watching. The same teacher taught us maths. And they would struggle with a sum. And I would simply not even raise my hand, go in front, excuse me, sir, and then I would take the chalk. You know those long sums, you start from this side of the pot to the other side.
Sure.
And you say, clap hands for this boy.
Sure.
And one time he was in another class.
Yeah.
This time he was doing geometry. Because this one, it was trigonometry.
Yeah.
He was doing geometry. And no one could. He got stuck, you know. These teachers never prepared. He was working out the sum as he's doing it in front of the class. So he got stuck. Said, no, there's a boy in room 20. Masego, go and call him. Hey, they come and call me. I'm wondering what's happening. Said, you normally see these things. Can you help here?
Sure.
I just stood and looked. You know, this problem, I could solve it in my head before writing down. And then I took the chalk. Very complicated geometry sum. I did it right up to the end. And the class was roaring, clapping hands.
Wow.
And in subjects like Afrikaans, do you know when I got to high school, I became the best student in Afrikaans?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you Prat?
Nimjerni.
I don't know. Me, I'm not there. I don't know. I'm not there. The audience will translate. Okay. So, but now you're saying it wasn't the case. Like, I'm hearing you like telling these stories, but I'm just like, here's a genius. So then, varsity, like Basari, what happened when it came to varsity?
Varsity, it was, like I said, it was tough. As you can see, I mean, I knew more than my teachers.
Yeah.
So I did get my matric certificate. My daughter Zindra sometimes laughs when she looks at it. It was just, just that 50% to make it, and to make it to reach the points to do science.
Yeah.
So when we were registering, here am I going with my certificate. They said I qualify for PSC. I go with the students. Phew. When I looked at their certificates, A, right up to the bottoms, and I've got E. And they were boasting, they were just holding their certificates like this. I was holding mine close to the chest so that they don't see the embarrassing symbols that I have. Then we're starting with physics, register for physics 1. I get there and the head of department says, you're not going to make it in physics. I can't allow you to register physics. And I knew I wanted science. So I go and ask somebody else that they said I qualify for PhD. Why can't I? That man, I didn't even know that he is actually the big guy. That man says I can't register physics. So he laughed and said, no, that man can't stop you. You qualify. So I went ahead and registered physics, registered maths, chemistry, zoology. Now the wonderful thing, I was assured of a roof over my head. I was assured of a meal.
Oh, residence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Residence and all. But now the main issue was the gap in knowledge where I come from in terms of my knowledge of science. I remember being in a zoology class and there was a microscope. We're supposed to look at a worm or something. For me, it was not so interesting. I removed some cotton from my lab coat and I put it under the microscope.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this cotton, analyzing it. Well, the lecturer there used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
I just could hear the smell, the smell of alcohol from behind me. He's behind me. And when I turned, I could see his angry eyes. I quickly removed the cotton and put the worm. And I looked at the worm. The exciting part was chemistry the first week. I knew so much that the knowledge I had gathered was good enough, was even more than the lecture. I remember asking him a question right at the beginning, first week.
Yeah.
And I knew the answer. You say the atom, they say it has protons, and they're all positive, but they're all in the nucleus. And general rule, negatives attract, but same charge, they repel.
Yeah.
And I say, how can all these positive charges occupy this small place? Why are they not repelling? Why is an atom stable? He couldn't believe. I remember now it's Dr. Sanyal. He just said something, no, these things, they are strong enough You know, my friend was so excited. He kept on taking, no, press him, press him. No, but I left him there. Then he went and found the answer.
Yeah.
The next, there's a student who asked me something. Yeah. Now he knew about the strong nuclear force that's holding the nucleus together. Yeah. But that's how interested I was in my studies as a scientist.
Yeah.
To the point that I would even go beyond, you know, what's being taught.
So now now being at varsity and studying, did you maybe then at this point maybe seek mentorship? Like you did mention earlier, not having any male figures or role models maybe to look up to, or people that were just doing the journey with you, you know? Was that at varsity, maybe did you have mentorship or anything of sorts?
No, varsity, I found myself facing two extremes. You know, I was very drawn to prayer God. So I just sought God's children as soon as I got there.
Yeah.
And I realized there's an SEM. Wow.
Yeah.
Young students who are praying together, singing, you know, every day.
Yeah.
So I joined this group. But it was sort of extreme, you know, because it's young people, you know. There was sort of some extremism, you know, where you are not supposed to play soccer. You know, there was no proper guidance or proper theology,
Okay.
you know, or proper doctrinal teaching.
Yeah.
So there were those many things which made me feel awkward when I'm there. I loved being with them, but in terms of keeping their company, it felt awkward. You're not supposed to wear all-star.
Huh.
You know, izinto zikaSathane. And those who know me know that I love it. And now there's an opposite extreme of the guys I go with in class, the drinkers, the smokers, and those are the guys who are living it, you know. These ones were really uptight, jacket, lecture hall, room, pray, that's it. There's social in the adversity, don't go there, don't mix with them.
Sure.
You know, so there were those extremes, and there was no one to guide me. But socially, I was more comfortable with the smokers, drinkers, and the like.
Yeah.
You know, so I eventually ended up living that dual life.
Hey.
I couldn't let go of this church life.
Yeah.
Because I actually loved it there. You know, it's just that socially they were awkward.
Okay.
You know, and there's these ones who make sense socially and otherwise. But then there's this thing that, you know, on Friday, we have to go to the bar to unwind after the long week.
Yeah.
So, so I had to hide my life from my church group so that they don't know this.
Yeah.
You know, until they caught me one time when I was drunk. They came to visit me in my room. And I was coming with my friends. I couldn't even walk straight. And there they are waiting for me and on my door and say, hey, there are your Bazalwane friends.
Yo. Living a double life.
Yeah, I just had to survive.
Oh, man.
You know, on that life, double lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So you're studying and you're doing, obviously you're excelling, you're falling in love with science. But then, like as you're saying, it's very interesting. Like you having, and I think this is something like most, just to touch on this a bit, I feel like it's something that most believers struggle with, even today, in as much as the church has progressed in terms of doctrine and just, I guess, how we function in society and all of that, different things and guidelines. But even so, we still find individuals who will struggle with this tension of you love God, you're in His Word, you're in prayer, you're growing spiritually, or like your spirituality is something of importance to you. But you having to understand as well, like, I want to have a social life. I'd like to go to a party, if it's a birthday party. I'd like to, whatever it is that I'm doing. Like you said, yo, not even playing sports. I was like, I'm very shocked. Like, wow, not even playing sports. So basically, you want to maintain a social life. How did that look for you? Like, and especially now they find out, they see, oh, Mzalwane is drunk. How was that? Were you able to find that middle ground? Were you outcast because of that? Were you the odd one out maybe in the church space? Or were you the odd one out in the social aspects because, he's with us, but Sunday, we're sontweni, sifuna ukuthi yena ufuna ukushona ngaphi, ufuna ukuyobamba iBhayibheli, sifuna abambe ingudu. Like, how was that for you, like balancing that?
Yeah, no, I needed a strong balance to tilt it in the way that those I drink with, I needed to stop this one because I felt in a way it's influencing or retarding my spiritual growth without stopping the social life.
Yeah.
No, because I became like a socialite, I started a campus radio station. I was running this campus newsletter. So I was doing all these things, famous in the SRC, leading rallies where it was said that as a Christian, you must not be involved in politics. There am I, addressing rallies, telling people that actually Jesus was a revolutionary. He cared for the poor. We cannot be neutral as Christians. It is wrong for a Christian to allow the system of apartheid. It is anti-God. Now I had to bring a political message through the gospel of Jesus Christ, that he challenged actually the still systems of the time. It reached a point where they got tired of me and I was expelled.
Wait, expelled from the church?
From the student fellowship. And that time I had risen to a level where I was in the executive.
Excommunicated you?
Yes, I was excommunicated.
Yeah.
But I stood my ground. I said to them, tell me one sin that I'm doing for you to excommunicate me. No, you preach politics in the pulpit. You just tell me one sermon where I was preaching politics. Because for me, what I'm preaching is the truth. No, they just caused an uprising. And it was very upsetting because I really loved the church. Yeah, I remember I was supposed to write a test one time. I couldn't, the way I was so upset or disturbed. I think I was fasting during those days because I realized that if I don't draw closer to God, I'm going to fall from grace. When people who are my closest family now, are kicking me out of the church, my family. So I lost out. Eventually, I left. But what did I do? I started my own fellowship. Gathered some people would go to the gate on campus. Because I was in the SRC, I had resources.
Yeah.
Connect speakers, play contemporary gospel. And, the music will be playing. And people would come even with their cans and listen to this nice gospel music.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't preach using a very loud a mic or whatever. Would go individually. I would tell my people that go individually and speak to someone.
Yeah.
And then at 6 o'clock, we invite them, come to us to a lecture hall. I remember the first day I started my fellowship, there were only 14 people. But within a month, it was a full lecture hall.
Sure.
Even more powerful than the one we called it the synagogue.
Yeah.
Where they kicked me out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was called the Student Christian Movement.
Yeah.
This one was the university fellowship,
Yeah.
which was more social, active. I was responsible for playing movies. At varsity, I was responsible for inviting DJs
Yeah.
to entertain students.
In the
during
past,
the
in better my
weekend.
DJ. Oh.
So, whether in the world, I'm there to give them entertainment, and I'm running daily a Christian fellowship.
Yeah.
This side, I'm called Mfundisi. This side, I'm an entertainer,
Wow.
keeping the university alive.
Yeah.
And this side, I had my books.
You manage balancing all of this, like all these different aspects.
Yeah, that's one thing young people need to realize. That at the initial stage, while God is molding you, He gives you so many things. But He removes one at a time once it's done its purpose.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's building you up to the ultimate purpose of what He wants you to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But initially, there are so many things that God involves you in, but all of them have a very crucial role to play in your primary ministry that God is calling you to.
Man, like that is powerful. And like, okay, we're seeing you obviously now there's kind of purpose to your life. You're studying, you're growing in your faith, you're involved in so many different organizations and projects, and you're doing amazing things. But then how is it mentally? How is your mental health? Like, we can't deny that you've come from a very tough upbringing. The past is marked with so many scars and trials. And I think that's also something that many men today are struggling with, that you see a man rising, doing things, being a pastor, being a CEO, whatever it is you're doing, being a family man. And we can let that fool us to think, how grand. I remember I was talking to my wife just this last week, towards the end of the week, and I was telling her, I'm like, I've been tired and struggling. And she was like, yeah, I've heard you telling me you're tired, but then I see you going to the gym, you go to church, and then you do your work, and then you're doing the podcast, and you're doing that. And I'm like, he has it under control. And I'm like, that's the thing. With gents, most of the time, we'll say we're tired, but that doesn't give us an excuse to then just stop life. We continue. We understand the responsibilities we have.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes where we get lost. That's where many men fall through the cracks, even maybe with their spouses or even their family, where they don't realize that in as much as I'm being productive, I'm taking territory, I'm growing, I'm climbing the corporate ladder, or I'm leading a ministry and it's a healthy ministry, or I'm a great spouse or a great parent, I am facing mental issues and it does need attention, So what did that look like? Were you even aware of that at that time to say, yes, I'm leading a ministry, I'm leading I'm a leader in the SRC, there's the newsletter, there's the radio station, my studies, and I'm hopeful for the future. Were you even aware at that time to say, mentally, I still have some traumas, or I maybe have anxiety, or what did it look like for you mentally? Were you even aware mentally of your mental health?
I think that's a mistake I made.
Yeah.
I thought I've left the past behind me. I only became aware when I underwent counseling.
Yeah.
That they asked me that that little boy, Namane, who used to struggle and be homeless, he's still there with you.
Sure.
You've ignored him. It's about time you acknowledge him. And it was when I had hit the wall. You see, while you are busy, you mask everything out. I think that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was excelling in everything, I touched. I was getting so many awards.
Yeah.
from a university for starting a campus radio station. I remember even the newspaper was Mail and Guardian, gave it an award, and I was the chairperson,
Sure.
of that newspaper at that time, of the board of the newspaper. So I was doing all these things. I would only realize when it's holiday time. I hated December holidays. At least June, I could still stay on campus. I'm busy, I'm an SRC person. But December, I would prolong as much as I can, making myself busy. And the reason is, ngiyakwabani mangisukela.
Yo.
That was the main problem.
Oh,
the
wait.
reality of me not having a home.
That was still the reality.
That was still a reality. Where am I
February
going?
to November, you had rest, and then
covered,
after.
yeah.
Sure.
I'm covered. But come December, June holidays, no problem, I would stay, on campus. But December, the university shuts down.
So what would you
I
do?
would wait until the last day when they are closing races.
Yeah.
I would have to phone someone.
Yeah.
Whether a friend, I remember one time I went to a friend's home and they were really not happy to see me
Yeah.
with my bags. But I had developed that thick skin that I'm staying here for these holidays. You want me or not?
Inviting yourself. Like it's how Jesus would invite himself. Like Matthew, I'm eating at your place today.
So I would just rotate them so that they don't get tired of me.
Yeah.
I
remember the strategy. Yeah.
One time I went to my brother-in-law's home. He was married now to my sister.
Yeah.
That's where I stayed when I was in high school for a year. I went there December holidays with my bags, and we're all surprised. Ufuna ntoni ngokulomba? It was a closer family.
Yeah.
But I said, ndiyahlala apha.
And then who wouldn't take no for an answer?
Fortunately, because I was in the SRC, I could go early around the 5th, 3rd, whatever. Go back because we had to organize accommodation for other students, prepare.
Yeah.
So January was not a hassle.
Yeah, just getting through December.
Yeah, December was a month I really did not like much.
So you said you hit a wall, particularly with, ignoring Ungamane, the small boy.
Yeah.
At what age, where is this? At what age? What age are you when you facing this reality?
I was a father now with 3 kids.
Yo.
When I realized that I'm stuck, I can't do anything. I hate going to the lecture hall to teach. I don't want to preach anymore. Everything just became heavy.
Yeah.
Everything just was a hassle. Even the smallest thing. A student would ask me to sign a document. I would say, Umfunan Maralo, with such a difficult task. I realized, now it's tough.
Yeah.
So when I consulted, they said, you've ignored that boy.
Yeah.
All your trips overseas, all your conferences, you should start taking him along, acknowledge him, and make him part of you. So you can't just wish away a painful past.
Yeah.
I don't know, it stays somewhere there and it hits you hard. Fortunately, I managed to go through university and I was lucky enough to get a job while I was at university, to get a job at Wits as a junior lecturer.
Yeah.
Even there it was God's move. So from there, straight from campus, straight to Wits University.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's Yeah, no, that's quite the interesting thing, and I think
Yeah.
that's hopefully it's ringing some alarm bells to maybe some guy who's watching this, like to say, have we maybe forgotten and neglected the little boy? You know, that little boy maybe who grew up without a father,
Yeah.
or who grew up in an abusive home, or was facing harsh poverty, and now we're just on autopilot. You know, because like, and sometimes you see it in the little behaviors that we have, that sometimes we find ourselves, we overcompensate in certain areas. I remember my best friend, we were talking about this, and like, I'm grateful that we have this awareness and we're still young. And he would constantly say, even when we were still in high school, he's like, I hate poverty. I never want to find myself in, but I hate poverty. And as you know, the years went by, I remember the one time we were sitting and I'm like, hey, is there maybe something we need to address here, in the sense that the way you hate poverty, you become very controlling financially, and you feel like you hate the idea of not being in control, or not having the financial means for something, or not having the financial capacity, because you're so afraid of going back to a poverty state. And it was getting to the place where you don't trust God with your finances. You're so in control of your finances because there's a trauma. Like, you hate poverty so much. I'm like, why do you hate it so much? You know, and it opened up, and it's like, when my family and I were poor, our family wouldn't help us, or even if they do, you're gonna help me, and you're gonna make it known that I'm helping you. Like, you know, you're gonna do something for me, and you're gonna make sure that I know that, hey, I'm helping you. Without me, you don't have a way out, you know. And he was like, that really affected him. And I'm like, here's something, you know, that we need to deal with. And I think as men, we can go through life on autopilot, and we're not addressing, you know, what it is that we are, that we faced. We don't go back to address that old child. We don't go back to address that pain, that trauma that we faced. And then it ends up manifesting in other areas. Like you're saying, now you're struggling with your students, you're struggling to deliver a lecture or to deliver a sermon, you know, it affects all these other areas. So, but then obviously life doesn't wait, and you're progressing. You know, life, you're carrying on. Now, is there still certain things maybe that you find yourself struggling with? Like, and are you able to extend that grace to yourself, or are you hard on yourself with certain things? Like, maybe when you realize that this is a weakness, or I'm still struggling here, I still need to heal from this. Have you arrived? Are you still working on certain things, like maybe past traumas?
Yeah, no, I'm still working on certain things, or on most things. You know, I think the issue that hit me more than anything was being fatherless. You know, I remember asking my mom, you know, there's just something where I would see children in the afternoon after school waiting for their fathers. And they would run and meet them when they come back from work. Nangu baba, vrrr. And I remember going to ask my mom, Mara, upi menu baba?
Sure.
And she'd say, Washon. I didn't understand that. It Washon happy. Because I wanted someone engizongigimela nami. You know, angiphathela amaswidi from work. You'd hear someone, hey, ubaba uthi siya edrobheni, you're going to town during those days. So it was a big thing. You know, and you know, I'll just watch in Khaled, go, wow, I wish I had a father who would take me to town. So what I did, and I'm sure my daughters can confirm, I overcompensated.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there in their lives. I did not want them to spend a moment, you know, when I'm not there. I remember I even got an offer at Wits very early in my career to go overseas for 7 months to meet other scientists, you know, in my area. Because I got to Wits, I excelled there as well.
Yeah.
You know, which was also overcompensating. I'm just afraid of failing.
Eish.
So even Wits, you know, I overcompensated and I excelled. So in my excellence, I get an offer now to go overseas for 7 months. I couldn't imagine Zintle without me for 7 months, or Tembi without me for 7 months.
Sure.
You know, and the offer was for me alone.
Yeah, couldn't bring family along.
I couldn't. I rejected the offer.
Sure.
I said, not without my family, not without my 2 daughters and my wife.
Yeah.
They tried to convince me. I said no. Now they needed me because they needed this link with Belgium.
Okay.
And Belgium had recognized me and had picked me to come there.
Yeah.
So they had to make means now and negotiate with Belgium that this man is coming with his wife and 2 kids. Zintle actually started school in Belgium, in a school that actually speaks Flemish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went with them. I said I refuse.
Sure.
And that's one thing that actually changed my life, my career, that made me international. But I was willing to let go of it if it was going to separate me from my family for 7 months.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like that, overcompensating, you know, to the point that even now I have to hold myself back. I think sometimes I hold myself back too much because I know I have that weakness, you know, of being there too much.
Yeah.
When Tembi left home, I struggled for a year, you know, that she's no longer part of the family. When she went to St. John's, it was very difficult for me. When you wanted to marry my daughter, I wanted to kill you. How could you?
One already left the nest.
One has already left. I'm still adjusting. And this young man comes now. He's taking my other daughter.
Yeah.
So I have that attachment thing, that protective thing, which also manifests in being a bit too strict. Now with hindsight, you know, so that I need to deal with. That thing that I want to be a father.
Yeah.
There must be a child. I'm a father too. You know, I can't wait to take him over, my grandson.
Just waiting for him to be weaned.
Yes, as soon as he's weaned, you know, like, you know, now I'm raising 5 boys. And it gives me such pleasure because I don't want anyone to be fatherless.
Sure.
You know, but it has an overcompensation in the sense that I compromise a lot of things, a lot of pleasures I should be having at this stage in my life. No, because I don't want to see a child being fatherless. Yeah, so you live with it. Even when you are aware of it, you can't help it. No, yeah.
Ish. And I've really noticed we tend to do that. We tend to overcompensate in certain areas, particularly in spaces where we've lacked. You find that you'll find yourself overcompensating in that sense. And so, like, even now, so how do you then deal with moments where you feel, have you ever felt like you're failing as a father? Like you mentioned how for you, a major thing, because one of the biggest struggles was for you that you realize is growing up without a father. And now obviously being overcompensating and then being that father who's present. How were there moments where you felt like you were failing, and how have you dealt with those moments? Because I think that's something that can really take out a lot of people, where the very thing, usually it'd be that very thing that you like, here, I never wanna, I don't wanna lack here. I don't wanna, it can be financial, it can be relational. I wanna be the best husband because my dad wasn't a good husband to my mom, whatever the case is. And then you realize now you come through a challenge in marriage, and maybe you face the reality that, I haven't been the spouse that my wife needs, or whatever the case is. Maybe it's with parenting, or in your case, was there ever a challenge or a place where you felt like you were failing, and how do you deal with that?
No, for me, it actually led me to fail maybe as a husband. Because of my attitude of being a father, I ended up fathering my wife.
Sure.
And that's what I did. Such that she never actually became a wife, but she was a daughter throughout the marriage. And maybe that comes from that, that I needed to take care. Sure. I needed to be in charge. I needed to make sure this and that happens. I needed to make sure that she's got the best job. I needed to make sure that then for her to work properly, she was work under me. So all those things you overcompensate, not realizing that somehow you are destroying somebody else, their independence, their ability to stand on their own, their ability to define themselves. I was talking to Tembi now that her character as my firstborn actually helped me because she's more like me. She was able to stand up to me on certain things. Like I'm a staunch Orlando Pirates supporter. She warned me when she was 10 years old that if Pirates loses, by the time I'm 12 years old, I'm leaving Pirates. When she came to varsity, I had bought her a Pirates t-shirt. She brought it back to me and said, I'm done with your Pirates. I'm now a Vet supporter. In things like that, but also in terms of her career projection.
Yeah.
Because as a scientist, I used to breathe science into my daughters. That science is the best thing.
Is that because that was your ticket out of poverty?
Yes, that was my ticket out of poverty. So this was the only way out. And when she got to grade 10, she was good in mathematics. She said, but I don't want it. Ow, why? No, I'm done with your sciences.
Sure.
I want drama. I want this. She chose a thing. And it's not as if she was giving me an option.
Yeah.
And in a way, she was teaching me to let go.
Yeah.
To the point that even when now she had to change churches, and she came to me as a pastor of the church, that for me to grow, I think I've been visiting Hillsong. I'll grow much better there.
Sure.
And I said, you go with my blessing, my daughter. So Zintle, following that path, it was easy for me to say yes to her. She never even struggled when she wanted to move here because she remained with me for some time.
Yeah.
In my church as a pastor. But when she approached me to say, hey,
pave the way.
Hillsong, no, go, my child. There was no clash in that. But like I say, it tends to be a weakness, that thing where you overcompensate, you direct children's careers, their paths and all of that. And they feel forced to emulate you to the point where they miss their calling. Yeah, so I think that was the area of my life where the overparenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember just before Esihle, my son was born, we, like Zinhle and I, we just dream, like, what do you think he's going to grow up to be? What do you think he'll do in life? And at that time, Zinhle and I started gravitating and enjoying tennis as a sport, like even just watching it. And I remember really enjoying it, like just even looking at the technical aspects of it and how, it's such a sport of strategy and technique. And to the point where we even started like playing it like, oh, let's start learning how to play tennis, And I remember just before he was born, I realized, and I said to my wife, I was like, I think I could have excelled in sports, but I was never put in those spaces. Financial reasons, but also I didn't go to schools that really cared for sports. My high school was an Indian school. Indians, they focus on academics. It was academic excellence only.
Yeah.
The primary school I was in, it's a government school. They don't really do much sports. The only sports is soccer, netball for the girls. That's that, and you never even know that they were playing. You just heard assembly. You would say, the boys won versus that school. You're like, when did they play? When was this? So I never really played sports a lot, except for high school, where then I played field hockey, and that was through my best friend, and we joined a little club, and I enjoyed it. Even though I wasn't the star player, the bench, I knew the bench quite a bit. I wasn't a star player, but I really enjoyed it, and I'd play here and there. But I realize now, growing up, I'm like, the individual sports, I find myself that I really enjoy them. I think when we just got married in the first year, my wife and I would play squash. And I enjoyed it, and it was so much fun. Now, most recently, we're learning how to play tennis. Like I really enjoy these little individual sports. And then I told them, like, I think I would have excelled in some of these areas. Or maybe there would have been a sport that I would have really excelled at, maybe gone provincial, maybe even national. But because, not having the finances to, have tennis lessons or anything, and also not going to a school that, is sports focused, that was just a disadvantage on my part. And I found myself dreaming of my son. What if he's the next best male tennis player? I even asked them, like, do we know a male tennis player in the world? Nah, I know Serena Williams. We know Tiger Woods in golf. Tennis, who's the male black tennis? We don't really have one. It will be my son, and I had to stop myself. Because I'm like, I don't want to start living unrealized dreams
through
my children. So I had to stop myself. So what you're talking about, like even in your case with academia, saying physics, it's something we need to be aware of. We can end up finding ourselves wanting to live our dreams through our children, or through maybe even our partners. It could be even, which can be quite a challenge as well. So that is quite dangerous. The question I want to ask is, do you think, particularly as Africans, African males, do you think we can break generational cycles? Because what you speaking of, it's not like your journey, your upbringing. It's not something that is just 1 in a million. It's actually quite prevalent, particularly in Black communities. The average household doesn't have a father in the house. They're not growing up with fathers. Either the father passed away, or the father just abandoned responsibility, or poverty. It's something that is very prevalent. Our past hasn't really helped us in that. Apartheid didn't help us in that. So these are things that probably, I don't know what the stats are, but a huge percentage of men, that is the reality in terms of growing up. And we having to figure out, how do we build wealth? How do we become a generation with fathers, and we the generation that came from a fatherless generation? How do we become healthy husbands? How do we become business owners and people of excellence, and people who are leading in the workplace and in all these different spheres of life? That is something we in this era, we're having to carve a path, and so in many aspects, we're finding we're breaking cycles of poverty, cycles of hand to mouth, cycles of fatherlessness. Is it possible? Or are we just...
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. And it starts with us.
Yeah.
For the mere fact that I said I'll never allow another child to be fatherless. My daughters know, even at school, there was a time when Tembi would have to go with an extra scarf tin, extra lunchbox for another child, who was poor. I saw a child who was poor at church, and a boy, I adopted him. From a very early age, I adopted him right until matric, where he became part of the family. And I'm sure that impacted him positively. And I'm sure someone who's experienced that will also do the same to the next generation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it starts with you as an individual. See the gap. My children know that they were not my only children. I had many other children who were not with us. So if you are there and you become the best that you can be, and they look up to you, these younger people, and they say, we want to be like him, then it has started.
Yeah.
And it will trickle down to other generations where you are going to make many use, down the generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't, if you live a mediocre life, if you don't do the best with what God has given you to excel, if we stop celebrating mediocrity as men, we celebrate 50%. We slaughter cows because our child has graduated from university with 50%, meaning that he doesn't know half of what that person he learned or she learned at varsity. We are excited and we celebrate that. We need to go beyond that, where we push for excellence now. Not just barely surviving.
Yeah. And is that what drove you? Like, you like also just knowing you as well, like in the personal capacity, you are a person of excellence. Like just wanting to achieve and wanting to go beyond and do a lot more. Would you say now the small money, was this something he ever imagined, that you are a respected professor and a scientist in the science community, you are you're a pastor, a spiritual leader, you're a father, you're a husband? Is this something that the young Amani who was asking Upubabami, did he ever imagine this? Was this the dream? Was this something of like, I'm going to make something of myself? Or was it just a matter of chance and right opportunities? Or did you always say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make something of myself and even build a legacy?
No, I think it was always there. I remember one of my mottos when I was young. I copied it from a song, Time Will Tell.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember I even wrote it in my bag in high school, Time Will Tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I'll be better than this.
Yeah.
Just look at time.
Yeah.
And you'll see someone who's different. So I sort of had something like that.
Yeah.
That's why I never settled for mediocrity. My mom said it straight, that my son, if you can just get your JC certificate and be umapalan, I'll be so happy. By the age of 22, you must be married, settled. But I wanted more. Umapalan didn't cut it for me. There must be some. No one ever imagined me going to university. When I was struggling at high school, having to get a bursary to take me through high school, no one thought, but I was thinking beyond high school.
Yeah.
I was already thinking about varsity. That's where I want to go. And the career path I took, it's because it's limitless.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to teach myself now to slow down.
Yeah.
Because it never stops and it can consume you.
Is it important? Is it something that we need to kind of learn as Black people primarily? I say this, I ask this because I think it's maybe one of the traumas that, if we're being honest, all Black people struggle with. You go to the workplace, Black people are the hardest workers. Like, you go to any space, they constantly, because maybe of the fear and the trauma of, I know what it is to have nothing. I come from nothing. I understand poverty, lack. I understand sleeping without a meal. So we are so fixated on working. We are workaholics, if we want to be honest. Is it important that we figure out and we learn, maybe the sooner the better, when to slow down? Should it be a case of you slow down when you're approaching retirement, or maybe should we find a balance now, even in our working age? Yes, you're working hard, you are diligent in what you're doing, but you rest. You take your vacation. You have a social life. You do something, because I think that's something as well that I'm noticing in Black communities. Primarily, we will go on work mode and we will not stop, because maybe it's that trauma. It's that little shadow behind us of, hey, Baba, if you make one mistake or slip, you're gonna go back there.
Yeah, and we're busy.
Yeah.
We don't have time. You see, our social life is church, and the church we're busy as well. Church life can also consume you.
Yeah.
You have church life, you have work life, you have family life. That's it. You know, it's hyperdrive all the way until you hit the wall.
Sure.
So we need to step back and relax.
Yeah.
I remember at church, I was trying to organize men that let's have something. It was still CDs that time,
Yeah.
you know, that let's form a CD club where we buy each other gospel CDs. We come to your place, we buy you CDs, we play the music, we have a braai and just relax. No one actually took that up. Even in our meetings, we're serious.
Sure.
You know, even when we're supposed to be relaxing, we're serious, discussing politics.
Sure.
Everything about us is just serious. The world is falling apart. We need to be on constant watch. And that thing is actually consuming us inside. In life, you need to teach yourself at each stage, take a break and reward yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we really need to learn that, particularly as Black people. Like, I remember it's a group of friends of mine. We started this thing of every Wednesday we will go to the sports club in Bryanston, and we'll just hang out. Maybe we'll order some food on a set. Sometimes maybe we'll play paddle, whatever it is. And remember when it started for me, when I joined, it was shortly after the birth of Esish. And I was still on paternity leave at home, and two of my friends were like, we just want to get you out of the house. You know, they call my wife, very respectful. They call my wife, hey, can you steal him for a few hours? Yeah, take him. And they came at just the right time. I was tired. I was like on edge. So they took me out for a few hours. We sat there, and it's like 12 o'clock during the day. And we're sitting there, and I look around. I'm just seeing white people. And these white people, they're playing paddle or playing tennis, or they're sitting and drinking. And I'm like, it's 12. I'm like, surely bayasebenza labantu. Why are they, you know, what's happening? And it's like, no, this is where they're networking as well. They build relationships here. They make deals like this. Yes, they're working, but they structure their days to do this. And it's like, this is what I looked at them like, why aren't we doing this? And that's where it kind of stemmed as well. Like, hey, let's do this. Let's actually meet. Don't wait for a weekend. Like, let's meet Wednesday afternoon after work. We come 2 hours. We laugh, talk, maybe play something, go home, carry on with the week. And it became something so nice. I remember coming home that day and I was like, telling my wife, I'm like, I need this. I actually need this. This would be so good for me just to unwind in the middle of the week. And it's something unheard of. Unwinding in the middle of the week, Wednesday. No, you unwind on a Friday and you say shipping or a club and you're unwinding and you unwind until Sunday and then you're back on Monday. That's kind of the culture we've just fallen into. And it's kind of weird if you're going to tell someone, oh yeah, no, Tuesday evening I'm playing tennis and then I'm back at work on Wednesday. You know, it doesn't seem to resonate with us, particularly as Black people. And I'm like, I think it's really important for us to do that.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, you respect it. Physicists, scientists, pastor, father, husband, and you've really built a legacy. And now, what is something maybe for another person, maybe another young man who's watching and now they are by pusher, they also in the SRC right now, or they also figuring out studies or getting that bursary, or maybe even just getting married as well. What would you say to encourage that person? Or if you were to write a letter to Unamane, the small boy, who is just facing such harsh realities at the moment, what would you say to that young person?
I would say nothing is impossible if you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
But in your journey of pursuing excellence, make sure that you are not consumed by the journey itself.
Yeah.
But your journey towards excellence becomes a path of joy. So when you're at varsity, make sure you still enjoy yourself as you study, as you improve yourself. Also in that SRC, don't take it too seriously where it's all you live for. Everything has a part, is coupled with a part that is joy.
Yeah.
But we do not realize that. We just focus on this one where we have to work very hard. Yeah, when I look back at that little Ngaman, I would say, don't take yourself so seriously. Yeah, life is fun.
Let's have fun. Let's have fun. Do it, so
yeah.
Oh man, yeah, no, that is true. And I think that's another friend of mine. I was really inspired looking at his life. I'm like, this guy works hard and he's had a working career. He's old, much older than me as well. But the way he enjoys life, man, this guy does taekwondo, does taekwondo classes. He does horseback riding. He has a tennis coach. Hey man, he does archery. He does all of these things in a week. Like I think on a Monday and a Friday he has tennis. I think Wednesday is taekwondo. There's Saturday is horseback archery. I think, like I don't know the days, but he does them, and he's like, I'm just enjoying life. And every time I see him, whatever, he might be going through a dire situation. He might be like at some point he was unemployed. He's like, I'm enjoying life. Life is good. I'm okay. And he just enjoys life. He works hard. He works, but he just enjoys life. I'm like, hey, Maka, how do you get the time to? He's like, I told myself to say, I'm like, I wanna do horseback riding. So I went. I looked around. I checked on Google. I found a place. Oh, they have horses. I said, how much is it? Signed up. I do horseback. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. Like, and that's for me. It was so inspiring. I'm like, I want to enjoy life as much as yes, it's hard. Yes, we're trying to build something. We're trying to get somewhere, but let's find the moments where it can be, fun for us and we can enjoy responsibly as well. Don't now you're hearing this guy has the means to do all these things. Me, I can't be enrolling in all of them.
But the little that you can do, focus on that. Like you say, buy table tennis, enjoy it with your wife. Buy Scrabble, enjoy it. There are so many things to enjoy. Like I asked myself, when was the last time I was in a stadium? And I love soccer. I said, no, this is not right. I'm looking for tickets now for the final between Chiefs and Pirates, where we're going to collect that Nedbank
Is it the Nedbank Cup, ne?
Yes.
We're going. Where's the final? Is it Soweto?
No.
Who is it?
Moses Mabhida.
Asambe. When is it?
On the 10th.
When? May?
Yeah.
Hey, May is right here.
I've already booked accommodation from the 9th to the 11th. I'm going to watch that game. And because I just sat and asked myself a question.
It came at the wrong time. I'm already going to Devon on Thursday. It's too close. I was going to say, I would say, I'm like, no, it's fine. But you're going to come back, your heart is going to be better because we're taking it.
I may come back crying, which is unlikely though.
No, you won't like the journey back. Yeah, enjoy going. Because coming back, it won't be nice. Don't worry. I'll call you. Okay.
But it's things like those which are actually fun.
Yeah.
You're always sitting on your lounge TV watching soccer. Why not go to the stadium? It's so much fun. I remember how I would enjoy it when I go there. I said, man, why am I taking myself so serious now? Yeah.
Sure.
Hey. So it's right what you are saying that, what you can do it.
Yeah.
As you are on this journey.
Yeah. No, man. That's
because you'll die before you leave.
Hey, and I always tell myself, I'm like, people say, no, saving my money till retirement, or I'm gonna retire at 55. I'm like, what if you don't see 55?
Exactly.
And it's like the Bible says, like the inheritance, whatever you build, it will be eaten by someone else. I think it's Ecclesiastes. And it's just that thing of like, yes, be prudent, plan for the future. We plan in faith, but along the way, reward yourself, have fun. Yeah. Oh man, no, that's powerful. Look, we're at the end, and I just want to do something very new that I haven't done, but I'm gonna throw just rapid fire. It's the rapid fire round, and I'm just gonna throw some questions, and first thing that comes to mind, you'll just answer the first thing that comes to mind. And so, you ready for this one?
Yes.
All right. So, hardest lesson you've learned?
Not to be serious.
Yeah. Biggest myth about being a man?
You are strong.
Yeah. Sure. Wait. Please elaborate.
There's this misconception that because you are a man, you are strong, you can handle it. That's why men actually bottle up their feelings, because they want to portray this macho myth that you've got it under control. You don't.
Sure.
I thought I'm strong until I hit a wall. And I realized that I didn't have it under control. I just bottled it up. And now I have to face it. Yeah. So it's a myth that you are strong if you are a man. Women live longer because they know that they are weak. Sometimes admitting your weaknesses is a strength.
Wow. Okay. One word to describe your journey.
Difficult.
Yeah. Last one. What does being enough mean to you?
Contentment.
That is powerful. Yeah. And then I'll leave with this last question. I always ask every guest that we've had, and that is, what man are you becoming?
Like David, a man after God's heart.
Yeah.
The biggest desire, what I live for, is to hear him one day say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
No, that is powerful. Yeah. I think that's also something that's close to my heart. I'm like, I want to be, I think that's always been a constant prayer. I want to be a man after God's heart. I remember like reading the Psalms and hearing that about David. I was like, I want that as well. Like, I'd love to be known for that as well. To be like, this is a man who's after God's heart. Like, to have that even, to have the Father even say that about me, to say this one was after my own heart. I think that is something that I also truly desire.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was such a powerful conversation.
Yeah.
Guys, we need to have tissues because
a bit difficult. I think you could see me becoming emotional.
Yeah, no, like when you mentioned being strong is a myth. Ish. Yeah, that hit me. that one hit me, and guys, we really need to have tissues on sets moving forward because wow. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you really, the legacy you've built, it is such a powerful legacy. Not just because of what you've built, but because of the rough journey that it's been and the difficulties you've had to face to get to where you are. And it really is an inspiration. Like, even for me, I think it's something that really inspires me. I remember it was one of the excitements. I won't say because she's here. I was more excited to get married to her, but it was like, here's a person as well. Like, I'm going to have a father, like in areas where maybe my father wasn't able to live up to. It was something that was so inspiring as well. And so, I'm really glad we had this conversation. And thank you so much.
Thank you.